Super Rugby Round 3, the Friday games. Interesting times. Very, very interesting, especially for our two Pacific teams, but also for the Reds away in Perth. We'll go over some key events, some stats, upcoming fixtures, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on the games at the weekend. We saw some pretty good tries and whatnot, but we'll start with the Moana Pacifica game against the Crusaders, their first ever game. Sure enough, they lost 33 points to 12, but I think there's some encouraging signs here. I don't want to read too much into it because the Crusaders, sure enough, they shifted their team around a lot. They made a lot of changes. It was like 12 changes or something. But remember, the Moana Pacific guys have been stuck with COVID cases for the last 2 weeks or more. So really not the ideal preparation for a game against the Crusaders. And not at home either. I mean, they were playing in Dunedin, so it's kind of a neutral venue for this one. 33-12, so it's still a bonus point win for the Crusaders. Not full strength team, but as far as first games go, given the circumstances, I think there's some encouraging signs, and I'm mainly pleased actually with the way their defense held. And that may seem crazy when they conceded 33 points. They conceded 5 tries, but still, under the pump for large periods, their defense didn't just crack and ship kind of 50, 60 points like some of the predictions kind of had things going, and they scored a couple of good tries. Second half, the Moana Pacific guys actually managed to put the Crusaders under the pump for a wee while and punish them. So they got a couple of tries. Funaki gets the first one, and it's kind of the first chance Moana Pacifica have down the Crusaders' end after the Crusaders have been dominating them for the first kind of, 10, 15 minutes. McClutchy with a nice line break to kind of set up that bit of go-forward ball, but the Crusaders obviously did hit back. Dunche got one, Blackadder got one. Second half, Cody Taylor comes on and gets a couple. So, yeah, I mean, the Crusaders had to work right until the death to get that bonus point try. But seriously, the Crusaders' maul in the first half anyway was unable to really crack the Moana Pacifica D. And, man, did they knock the ball on a lot, the Crusaders. And sometimes that just happens when you're under pressure, when you're getting big hits. And, you're a little bit wary taking the ball to the line. So, yeah, I mean, the Crusaders' first half had 65% possession, 73% territory. They had double the run meters. They hadn't conceded a penalty, and Moana Pacifica had conceded 5. And yet the Crusaders had knocked it on 7 times to 1. So, yeah, a wee bit frustrating if you're a Crusaders fan. But as I said, kind of encouraging defense from the Moana Pacific guys. It was only 14 points to 5 on the scoreboard in that first half. Like I mentioned, they bring on Taylor. He gets a couple in the second half. So they are able to convert a few more chances. But there was a good period in that second half when Moana Pacifica would camp down the Crusaders' end. And Anisi got his try basically when the Crusaders kind of mucked up an exit, right? They were a bit ambitious trying to get out of their own half and coughed up some pills, and Moana Pacifica were able to pounce on it. So, yeah, I mean, the game finishes, like I said, 33-12. The run meters are 478 to 323 in the Crusaders' favour. Moana Pacifica tackles at 90%. They make a couple of hundred tackles, which is a solid shift. The Crusaders are only at 83% and make way fewer because the Crusaders had so much more ball. Both sides will be a bit frustrated with the turnovers conceded, 20 by the Crusaders, 18 by Moana Pacifica. But Moana Pacifica generated 6 clean breaks, which is great for your first effort, only 3 to the Crusaders. Henry Stowers, man, 21 out of 22 tackles. That's a huge shift. Beats 4 defenders. Fiaki, the fullback for the Crusaders, he has a solid shift as well. 88 run meters, 6 defenders beaten for him, and a clean break. So, yeah, I reckon pretty encouraging times for Moana Pacifica. Not getting too carried away. It's first game. It's a shifted up Crusaders lineup. But, yeah, I think there's enough there that we can look at them to build. As these guys play together more, they're only going to get better in those kind of building those combinations and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, the Crusaders are 3 from 3, which is a great start to them. Moana Pacifica, none from 1. Moana Pacifica are away to the Hurricanes next, and the Crusaders are home to the Chiefs. Depending on how the Chiefs go against the Blues, that could be a really interesting game. Second game, speaking of interesting, the Ndrua man. They managed to get their first ever win over the Rebels, and you have to be pretty concerned if you're a Rebels fan about how things are looking for this season. Like, based on the games thus far, it looked like these two teams are the bottom of the Aussie side of Super Rugby Pacific, And that scoreline looks kind of close. But remember, one of these tries is right at the death, so it's only a consolation one for the Rebels. So they literally had no chance to win it as the clock was kind of nearing 80 minutes. They were only able to get the scoreline a little bit more respectable on the board. So, yeah, which is strange because, I mean, the Rebels in their pink kit, which actually looked alright, they started good. Tunu Mapea got the first try on 2 minutes. And Hansen got another one before half-time. So they had 14 points to 0 lead. The Ndrua had a guy in the bin. Weirdly, though, the Ndrua looked most likely to capitalise on chances when they mucked up their own line-out. Like, they had a try denied after they'd mucked up a line-out from, like, the first ruck. But the guy picks it up. He's not at the back of the ruck. He's in an offside position, picks up the ball, goes over for a try. But they chalked that one off. And the try they do get through DRUvREB is also a mucked up line-out. It's almost like the broken play suits the Fijian guys more. I know that's so stereotypical, but that just seemed to be the case. So a messy line-out. Caleb Muntz ends up putting a chip over. DRUvREB on the right wing, he manages to trot over for a try. I think that's despite the fact they had a yellow card. So, yeah, 14 points to 7 at halftime. Both sides score during the yellow card. So, yeah, the Ndrua managed to kind of handle that fairly well. I mean, halftime, the run meters is 144 to 114, so the Ndrua have had more. Possession is pretty even, but the territory is all with the Rebels. So the Ndrua, I think, in the second half, they're able to turn that stat right around, and that's also reflected on the scoreboard. Second half, goodness me, mirror. I mean, that one is Rebels losing their own line-out ball, and that is like literally the stereotypical Fijian try where the loose forward is just lightning quick down that left wing and goes over for a try. But to kind of buck the terms of those, like, you know, stereotypes, I mean, 4 penalties by the Ndrua when they had like 60+% territory in that second half is just smart play to keep the scoreboard ticking over while you're down the Rebels' end, while they're conceding penalties. Just build that lead. So it'd be wrong to just kind of go with the flat stereotype about things. So, I mean, like I said, they did get some really good broken play tries. The one through Vota is like a tap and go. Again, when they had a penalty, and this time they didn't opt for the 3. They took it quickly and caught the Rebels a little bit unawares with a bit of pace down the left wing. So, yeah, man, it's very, very, very encouraging. I mean, the Rebels did get, I mean, Tunu Mapea got 2, which is a pretty good outing, and then Nu'u got 1 at the death. But, yeah, what can you say? Great win. Great win for the Rebels to the Ndrua, to get their Super Rugby Pacific kind of campaign underway. I mean, run meters finished 485 to 318 to the Ndrua. Possession territory finishes pretty much even, but second half territory is 61% to the Ndrua. Their lineouts 6 from 12, so 50%. But as I said, it was almost like sometimes when it didn't go to plan that they were able to create something. The Rebels were 14 from 16. Defenders beaten 25-14 to the Ndrua. I mean, Vota has 115 run meters. He's the centre. 8 defenders beaten. What's their number 8's name? It was like Thiki Daveta. He has 18 out of 19 tackles, and the next guy from the Ndrua was like 9 tackles. So huge shift from him. The Rebels winger Vaihu has 6 defenders beaten at 54 run meters, so he was looking sharp as well. But ultimately, man, the Ndrua, what a result! Absolutely chuffed for them. It's another step in the right direction, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. I mean, the Ndrua have got the Reds away next, which could be a bit of a well, I don't want to say a wake-up call because the Ndrua know what they're about, but it's going to be a harder game than against the Rebels for sure. And the Rebels are at home to the Brumbies, which could be pretty tricky. The last game was the Force and the Reds. I was a bit disappointed with the Force in this one, especially in the second half. I reckon Force fans will be pretty disappointed. But the Reds, you'd have to be pretty pleased if you're a Reds fan, the way that side kind of managed to push on in that second half. I mean, Salakai Lota got injured within like the first couple of minutes. The captain's jersey is cursed for the Reds, seemingly. The Reds looked like they were going to score early. They went like 13 phases, and Harry Wilson dove over to dot the ball down, but he dotted it down on someone's foot. So, yeah, Reds couldn't convert early. Like I mentioned, Salakai also went off early. The Reds were conceding heaps of penalties. The Force opted for a 3 early, and then the Reds immediately pretty much hit back with a try. So I think that was the Force just kind of failing to gather a restart. That was a little bit of a curse for them in this game. So 7-3. It did get a bit helter-skelter, which was pleasing to watch. There was just kind of turnovers galore. Medrano got one, McCright got one. It was kind of going real back and forth. And yeah, the first half, the Force scrum seemed to be on top, but then once they brought Tupou on in the second half, maybe unsurprisingly, seemed to kind of even things up a bit where the Reds were able to even get on top. The Reds got one through Campbell on 26 minutes. That one was down the right wing, pretty much their first time after like the Force had been held up down the other end. So Force, I feel like they should have had more points in that first half. Just lacking a little bit of that cutting edge, which I kind of moan about a fair bit. But, I mean, they did get one finally after half an hour through Godwin, where Finesley Awasa put a little dink over the top from a scrum. They must have identified that as an area of opportunity against the Reds because there was nobody there, and Kyle Godwin was able to go over for that one. He just kind of caught the ball above his head, didn't he? So it's like exchange of penalties, 15-13 half-time to the Reds, but only 3 points for the Force in the second half. Second half's where the Reds kind of really run right. Fluke gets one, and McCright gets one. So it's a bonus point win, man. 4 tries to 1. I mean, Mataele had a big old line break, and he got smashed by Paisami, who ended up getting yellow carded. So there were 2 yellow cards. Fotuaka got one as well in the first half. So 2 yellow cards for the Reds, and yet the Force only scored just the 1 try. I think that's going to be what burns. But to be fair, James O'Connor ran that game really well. He just kept getting the Force defenders to like either draw in on him or open up gaps, and he was just putting guys through. So yeah, he was having a great day, and he had a pretty good day with the boot as well. So I mean, yeah, what can you say? The Reds finally get a dry weather game, as someone pointed out. Their first 2 games were played in pretty horrible conditions. It was perfect conditions in Western Australia, and especially in that second half, the Reds were just too good. So yeah, I'd be a bit frustrated if I was a Force fan with their inability to kind of capitalise in that first half, because the possession and territory finishes with the Reds, like 55% possession, 58% territory. But the Force in the second half only had 37% possession and 32% territory. So in the first half, they had more. They were able to hang on to some ball, but they just couldn't get over the try line, barring that one. I mean, 15 penalties to 8, with the Reds conceding 15, 2 yellow cards to none. Force should probably have more points. But I mean, you got to give credit to the Reds for holding them out. Tackles 157 to 115. The Force make more across the game. 90% tackling percentage for the Force, 87% for the Reds. But I mean, the Reds still scored 4 tries. Run meters 406 to 311 to the Reds. So yeah, the Reds get it done where it counts. McCright gets 78 run meters, a clean break, 2 defenders beaten, 15 from 17 tackles. The guy was having a proper shift along with this 10 who was boss and everything. Mataele 80 run meters, 2 clean breaks, and 3 defenders beaten. I feel like he still looks like one of the sharper tools in the shed, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a deflating one, just from a Force perspective in that second half. The first half was competitive. If the Force had gone in with one more try, maybe mentally it could have gotten the edge. But the Reds, despite missing some key guys, being away from home, apparently the trip to Western Australia was a bit disrupted. That's a really encouraging win. Bonus point win away from home in these conditions with that prep and everything. Kind of speaks volumes to the depth in the side. So there you go. 3 games on the Friday. We've got a few more this Saturday. My Blues are going to be in action against the Chiefs in a few hours. So yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.